There's a lot of different ways we use generators on sets, and they come in all shapes and sizes and wattages. Depending on how much wattage you're gonna need and how long of a cable run you're gonna use is gonna affect what generator you choose. First, let's talk about the basics, the calculations. West Virginia. Besides being a kind of odd state, it can help us with our wattage calculation. W equals VA, or watts equals volts times amps. Using this formula, you can find any variable that you need, like the watts, the amps, or the volts. Let's say you have a unit that takes 2,000 watts and you're running 120 volts. You simply divide by the volts, so 2,000 divided by 120, which gives you 16.6 amps. Generally tolerable for a 20 amp circuit. Now let's say you have a 30 amp twist lock circuit and need to find how many watts you can run on it. You would times 120 volts by 30, which gives you 3,600 watts. This formula is great, and I usually use it for finding how much amperage light's gonna pull on a certain voltage. Now there's an even simpler way to do it in your head that I like to call paper watts. You simply divide by 100 or just move the decimal point over 2 places to the left of your wattage you want to calculate. So that 2,000 watts becomes 20 or 20 amps. This is a quicker way to do it in your head, and it gives you some extra room in the amp department to be safe. So realistically, it's 16.6 amps for a 2K to run on 120 volts, but if we use paper watts, we're calculating it for 20 amps, so we have a little bit of overhead in case there's some surges or anything else. So next is voltage. In the US, we pretty much all use 120 volts except for the dryer plugs and things like that in households, but that's for another video. Most of the smaller generators only output 120 volts. Now for overseas, for example, in the UK, they use 220 volts as the standard output for like households and things, and they have a different style of plug compared to the American style. Voltage is basically like a water current pushing through the cable. 220 volts is more than 120, so we can get more amps out of 220 than we could on a 120. If you're running that 2,000 watt light at 220 volts, it's only pulling 9 amps. Now if we were running it on 120 volts, it would be pulling 16 amps. So you can see where 220 can be an advantage. You get more power and less line loss overall. The most commonly used generators on set are definitely the Honda series generators. The Putt-Putt, as we call it, is a bulletproof generator in either 2,000 watts or 1,800 watts running capacity. Usually we use this for smaller lights, or we use it to power other departments on set. I have one myself. They start every time and they're pretty quiet for how much output they get. The next step up, which we use mainly all the time on larger sets, is the EU 6500 Honda. This guy's a beast. While pricey, around $7,000, it's a workhorse on larger sets. It's got around a 5,500 running watts capacity, and with that you get two 20 amp outlets and a 30 amp 120/240 volt twist lock connection. So you could run two 1,800 watt HMIs or one larger 4K HMI, no problem. It's also very quiet for the power if you have the blimped model, which dramatically reduces the decibel output, and hence why it comes with a large price tag. If you see other 6,500 watt generators, you might think they're good, but they're not the blimped model, and they're going to be very loud. You're going to have to get them very far away on set, and you're going to have to run more cable, which runs into its own problems in itself. If you're around buildings or something like that, you can hide this behind a wall at a relatively short distance, and it almost goes away immediately. Now yes, this does have a 120/220 option switch, but most of the time we need to convert that 220 down to 100, 120 for more sensitive camera equipment that can't handle up to 200 and above. A lot of the fixture lights can handle 100 to 240 volts, like this SkyPanel X, so you could run 220 off of that if you wanted to. But when feeding other departments on set from the same generator, we generally drop it down to 120 just to be safe. And to be honest, we're not really running 220 unless it's a very large unit like a 18K or something like that. It's just not needed. It'd be great to run everything off 220 because it's less amps, but our standard here is 110 for most things. Usually these 6500 Hondas come with a built-in converter for film production work that's got a Bates/stage pin connection right on the generator itself. These are great, and you get the full output of the generator through one cable. Some don't have this feature built in, so instead we use a drop-down converter box from twist lock into a Bates connection, which is super unnecessarily heavy. It's like 90 pounds on a dolly, all lead or copper inside that box. I don't know, but it's massive. So you can see from the video here, we got a twist lock coming out of the 6500 going into this big box, which is Bates coming in, and then out of that box we get another Bates cable that's 120 volts step down, effectively doubling your amperage from the 30 volt twist lock 220 up to 50, 60 amps, 120, give or take. Either way works fine, but to use the full power of the generator in one single cable for like a large light, let's say, you're gonna need one of these options on your generator. If not, you're stuck with a 30 amp and a 20 amp separated, so you wouldn't be able to run like a 4K because it's two separate lines coming out on two separate breakers. Now there are bigger generators that we call tow plants that can be 400 amps, 1200 amps, or even higher. These generally come with cam lock cable, as we call it, and it's a totally different ball game in itself. able to feed 120 or 220 volts on 1, 2, or 3 hot legs and on different phases, but we'll dive into that in a separate video. In my next video, we'll talk about line loss and how to calculate sizing of cable for length of run and max wattage on the length of run depending on your cable cross-sectional area. There's a lot to dive into on that, so that'll be like a part 2 to this video. If you guys enjoyed the video, please give me a like, subscribe, really helps me out. If you want to see anything else, generator-wise, voltage-wise, watt-wise, let me know. We'll see you next week.